Do you know what the most common delays are in a custom home building project? Let's talk about it. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. My name is Sean Coy. I'm the owner and president of SDS Homes Construction. And today with me, I have my beautiful, lovely wife and amazing partner, Chantel.
Beautiful, lovely wife. Thank you, honey. Yeah. I am Chantel, the CFO and office manager.
So today we have a good one. We're going to talk about the most common delays when it comes to building a custom home. We have 8 topics that kind of fall into the delay category, right? We want to make sure that everybody's aware, because if you're going to build a custom home, you got to expect some delays. But these 8 will definitely give you a heads up, and so you're not surprised by them.
Right. I wonder if we should have named them like the most frustrating. No, I'm just joking.
They can get frustrating, but if we tell them ahead of time, maybe it'll help out.
Lessen some of the frustration.
Correct.
All right. So I'll get us started today.
Sure.
So number 1, weather conditions. This year, we've had more rain than we could have ever expected, ever. So, weather obviously adds to the timeline and delays. Rain, we don't really get snow out here, but rain is the most common that we get. And, when we've trenched and underground plumbing, got to go in there and suck all the water out, obviously, can take on a couple of days. So just knowing that weather conditions can delay us a bit.
I got a bone to pick.
Oh, with whom? Who are you picking it?
Because we are in Southern California, correct?
Yes, we are.
So the late 80s, early 90s R&B group, Tony, they said, and they promised us.
Yes.
They said, it never rains
in Southern California. They did say that.
Look it up. It's a real thing. All right, number 2, permit and approvals. Don't look at me like that, because I'm not the county. I'm not in charge of that aspect of it.
Okay,
but
go ahead.
For you guys out there, you need to know, if you're going to build a custom home, permits and approvals take time.
How much time?
Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. The time is dependent on the county and their workload. Right? That's what they tell us.
That's what they tell us, yes.
If the county's listening to this podcast, I'm waiting for some permits. Could you get them through a little quicker, please?
Please and thank you.
It's up in the air, honestly. We've had them take a couple months and get through right away, and then we've had them take over a year.
Yeah.
And again, we're talking about custom home building, right? So the full set of plans that have to be approved, they have to go through all the departments and all the clearances. You just never know, right? So this is one of those areas where we want you to be patient with us, because we have no control over it. All we can do is turn it in, and then everybody has to wait.
Because I think what is good for our client to understand is we're just as anxious as they are. We want to start building. We want to start grading, foundation, framing, all of those things. But unfortunately, we can't start without permits.
And you would think that we'd get some special treatment because we send them
lots of them.
Lots of plans and lots of business, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes time to do our own personal home, how'd that go? We get any love from the county?
No love in the club.
No. So when you guys ask us, hey, isn't there somebody you can talk to, ask for a favor? Shoot, I can't even get my own house done. How am I going to get yours?
We do our best and call and check in. But again, just a reminder that there's nothing we can do. We're waiting on them.
Yeah.
All right. So number 3, supply chain issues. So, I mean, we had a time where COVID time, right? Where we had the mix for the concrete, I remember.
Yeah.
Right. That was a shortage of that. Also just even lumber and those things. So those affect the timeline and can delay your project, right? Because there's just things, even appliances. Remember, we were waiting almost a year and a half out. You had to order them in order to get them in. So all of those things can affect. We can, we can set up a timeline for those things and order them, but we never know what's happening around the world and, what ship they're coming on and things like that. So depending on what you've chosen for materials and that kind of thing. So just being cognizant of those things and what they might cause delays.
And we are proactive in ordering materials ahead of time, right?
Yes.
So for us, we don't have that many issues. But when things like COVID hit, there's nothing anybody could do. We were still working and still building. Actually, we had an increase in remodels and projects because everybody was at home, right? So, but lumber tripled, and then the shortages that we had because of COVID. So again, we can't control that, but we ask you to at least include this, in one of your items that could possibly delay you. Yeah. Okay, number 4, labor shortages. So labor shortages. Well, it depends on what labor you like, right? Like for us, we use Mom's saying all the time, right? Mom says, cheap labor ain't good and good labor ain't cheap. But labor shortages come along with that. If you want good subs and good trades that do good work, sometimes you have to wait because they're busy. And they're busy because they are good at what they do. So for us, we have a good relationship with most of our subs, so they're on top of it. If we have a project coming up, they know, they put us on the calendar. So we built those relationships over the last 10 years, and it works out good for us. But just know that labor shortages is a thing, and it could happen from time to time.
I think people forget in with that it's like any other business or job. People get sick, accidents happen, things like that. So keeping that in mind,
Sure.
Although we do our best to plan, but those things can't be planned for, right?
Right.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
So next up is design changes and change orders.
Oh, your favorite.
Yes. Love this. I just love the design aspect. But so design changes, right? You tell me that you want your floor maybe in a horizontal, and then you come back and tell me that you no longer want that, and we have to chip it all out and kind of restart and redo it. So changing
hopefully we don't go that far.
Yeah, changing those things can cause a delay, or even, sometimes they say add in a theater room, or they want to add in a sink in their garage, or, things like that. That's both a change order and design, right? So you've already submitted your plans. We've got those things approved, and now you're changing some things. So just remember that those change orders and the change of design can delay. It's going to look beautiful, though.
Correct. Right. But a lot of times we don't want them to think that we delayed them in somehow, right? When they wanted to add a theater room, like you said.
Yeah.
Or a second story office or something.
Well, they still want to stay on that same timeline, but you gotta bring them back to say, hey, wait a minute now.
Hold on a second.
Don't forget what we just did.
Okay, good. Number 6, site conditions.
Yes.
Site conditions is a thing mostly regarding soil. So you have a soils engineer who comes out, who does perk testing. We got to get your septic tank system set up somewhere on the property. But they actually test your soil, right? They take it to a lab and test it. We got to get it prepped for grading and whatnot. And sometimes, you come across soil that's all rock, so it's going to take longer to grade.
We know about that.
Right? Or even you come across a property, let's say you're buying land and we do a soils test and there's maybe some protected plants or even animals, that are protected. So then you got to deal with a whole little thing with the environmental department. So, site conditions could have a delay factor if you come across some of these major issues, which most of those we find out ahead of time. We're pretty good at looking at land and kind of seeing what potential dangers are out there. But again, site conditions could be something that would delay the project.
I'd like to add too that even though we go out and we evaluate, sometimes we do get land that has, especially out here where we are in Temecula area, avocado groves and orange trees and things that we have to go out. So if your land has a lot of those, either one of those, like grading and getting all that out, does extend the timeline for things.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So number 7.
Yes.
So inspection and compliance. So inspections.
Not too bad.
Not too bad. We do pretty good in this area, I would say. There are those times, where we get those inspectors that are really, really particular, as they should be, right? We want to do everything correct. But inspections, even calling them out, some days we get them where they come next day. Some days they're 2 weeks out. So it just depends on when we call and what we get. And I know I've mentioned this before, but in another episode, but COVID, ever since then, it's like they don't have enough employees working for what's coming into their office.
Right.
So sometimes we get lucky, sometimes we don't. But staying in compliance and obviously passing inspections are important. But sometimes those appointments don't depend on us and our timeline.
Right. So it's a good point to point out. Just that way they know what to expect. If we say, hey, we're down for 2 weeks, maybe we can clean up, do some pickup work, but we don't want them to think we're not working.
Right.
We got to wait for an inspection in order to continue on.
Move forward. Yes.
Yeah. All right, good. And then number 8, final one that I would say is financial delays. This happens mostly up front, I would say, in the beginning stages with our clients either obtaining a construction loan or funding it themselves. So this is mostly where the delays would come. A lot of times the construction loan process takes a little longer than they think, and or they might not, qualify currently for a certain amount. We got to change the amount slightly, or they're waiting for things to come through as far as credit. So financial delays could delay the start of the project. But once we're into the project, the only financial delay I could really say would make a big difference is if they're self-funding and then they're not paying the contractor, right? Because the contractor will stop work if they're not getting paid. So if there's financial delays on their end for whatever reason, maybe they're waiting for some money to transfer or something, that's fine. But just know that we're down for a couple weeks waiting for the payment before we can continue.
Yeah, I would like to point out too, I know you mentioned like draws, right? In which those come from whomever they're getting their loan from, right?
Right.
And with those though, sometimes I want to point out we have had delays. Like we'll put in for a draw, and sometimes they'll come out and view what we've done for those milestones in order to get us paid. And sometimes they don't come out as quick as we want them to come out.
Yes.
So that can cause a delay on your draw. So I just wanted to point that out.
Good point. Some banks are a little busier than others. You might have to wait till the following week.
Yes.
Got it. Yeah. Good. I think that was all 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for this episode. We thank you guys for joining us again. We love doing these podcasts for you guys because we want to explain the building process and what it takes to do a custom home. We want you guys to be prepared, and so there's no surprises in the future. So until the next episode, we'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye.